Antony is alive in Spain, and those at his club, alongside even Antony probably, wanted to stay that way going forward. So, following Betis' Conference League victory over Fiorentina, club legend Joaquin said, quote, "I'll bring the car if Antony has to be kidnapped, but he has to stay no matter what." And he isn't the only one that has become enamored with the internet's favorite player, the GOAT. In some corners of the internet, his teammates, the fans, club legends, and even the CEO of Real Betis haven't been able to hide their admiration for Antony. And you've got to feel good for the guy, right? He is basically living the I used to pray for times like these meme that you see tossed around all over the place on social media after largely becoming a bit of an internet meme during his time at United. I mean, the raised eyebrow, the kitty cat celebration, these things didn't help his case. But we can laugh now because that's in the past. He's past that. Given how he had struggled to the point of becoming a bench warmer, Antony's story is a bit surprising, to the point where now some La Liga giants are circling in the case that Real Betis can't find a way to keep him. And given the prospective transfer fees associated with his name now, given the performances he's supplying us with now, Antony is also proof of time travel. Ajax has had a couple of Brazilians in the last decade or so that have wowed their supporters at times. Before Antony, there was David Neres, who had a fantastic season before things going a bit dry for him. But when Antony was with the club, he was able to provide not just offensive output when it comes to goals and assists, when it comes to helping his teammates thrive, but he also brought some showmanship to the Eredivisie. Antony would charge down Eredivisie defenders without thinking twice. He wasn't afraid to reach into his bag of tricks, yes, even that underwhelming one that became his trademark, and his speed on the ball was devastating at times. But according to some Ajax supporters, there was also a bit of a misunderstanding of what Antony is amongst Manchester United supporters. And this is kind of the problem with good old compilation video scouting, and how it builds up some false expectations of players. When you would watch videos of Antony, you would see him beating players on the dribble, setting up teammates, and scoring goals, making you think that he is this kind of player that finishes off an attack and creates goals for himself. And while yeah, he can do that, he was often celebrated at Ajax for what he did both off of the ball and in the build-up of attacks. Antony was always a tireless worker when it came to backtracking and helping in defense and pressing his opponents, and would often be the guy who would spring an attack rather than be the one finishing it off or providing the final ball for a teammate to do so. Again, that's not to say he didn't have a good output. 12 goals and 10 assists and 33 appearances in his final season in the Netherlands is nothing to turn your nose up at or turn around a ball at. Nah. Forget that. But this built up the expectation among some United supporters that they were going to get a mercurial winger who would go on to better those numbers and be a massive part of United's attacks output. And I mean, for the price they paid, the combination of false expectations and that fee, there's no wonder why United supporters expected more of him, right? Manchester United were actually tracking Antony as far back as when he was with São Paulo's academy as just a 15-year-old. But the reports that they made on Antony at the time, as revealed by The Athletic a couple of months ago, stated that while he had great pace and technique, they noted that he had no right foot and was very predictable in his decision-making. Once he was at Ajax, they monitored him some more, but valued him at about 30 million euros. I'm sure even Ajax valued him at somewhere around 45-ish million euros. So you jump ahead to 2022, and United are paying about 95 million euros for the guy, to the shock of even Edwin van der Sar, the CEO at Ajax at the time.
Manchester United has reached agreement with Ajax for the transfer of Antony, subject to a medical.
That kind of fee, despite the players having no say in what anybody pays for them, is almost always a massive curse, a bit of a monkey's paw. You get your dream move that you've always wished for, but at the price of, well, that move being a nightmare and you're under constant scrutiny. Again, there are a few things at play here. One of them being the false expectations of what exactly Antony was when he arrived at United. You gotta remember, he was also only 22 years old. That's a lot of pressure to take on, and then a fee that you can only ever be seen as a failure under, right? But to be fair to him, Antony started really well at United. He scored in each of his first 3 Premier League matches, including 35 minutes into his Premier League debut, but things dried up quickly, and he ended up with just 8 goals and 3 assists, which wouldn't have been seen as nearly enough for a signing that demanded that kind of fee. Let's say he was also contributing to his teammates' scoring by winning the ball back in his own half and springing attacks. That still wouldn't be seen as a justification for his fee, so the game was rigged from the start in his case. But a couple of things can be true, right? On top of that fee, there was the fact that he wasn't performing well on a regular basis. Surely, they're linked in many ways, but the fact that he wasn't performing remains, right? He also had some stuff going on in his private life, some allegations against him that no doubt would have affected him in some way as well. Then the internet took over, grabbing hold of the Antony spin, using his photo of him raising his eyebrow before coming off of the bench in ironic ways, or his tiger celebration, or his quotes about playing in the favelas, nutmegging drug dealers on the street, all these kinds of things. There wasn't a single thing he could do without it becoming a meme, with people on the internet ironically calling him their GOAT footballer. Watch out for the GOAT, etc. The eyebrow photo was used to troll him mercilessly for every single mistake that he made. By the end of his time at Manchester United, you could see that his confidence was nowhere to be seen. In one of his final performances for the club in January of 2025 versus Southampton, he had a couple of howlers, one of which he managed to almost stop a sure goal with his mistimed sliding finish. The thing is, even if Ramsdale wasn't there to grab it, it still would have gone wide. That's how off he was. So at United, his reputation was so poisoned that it seemed like the only outcome would be Antony departing. From the relentless memes on the internet to the shadow of his transfer fee hanging over him, which all caused him to get worse and worse. And wouldn't you know it, a suitor came along.
His loan to Real Betis is close to being finalised.
Real Betis gave Antony a ladder to get out of the United pit that he was stuck in. In his first match for Los Verde Blancos, he was the man of the match. I'm sure a lot of people thought, that's great, it won't last, surely. Only for Antony to pull it off again and again. Whether setting up his teammates or scoring goals himself, Antony has thrived at Real Betis under Manuel Pellegrini as he slotted into their exciting attack featuring Abdi, Cucho, Hernandez, and Isco brilliantly. In his first 4 appearances, he had 2 goals and 2 assists, winning the Man of the Match award in 3 consecutive matches. Yes, the guy who just a couple of weeks earlier was missing sitters from 2 yards out was now resembling the player that United supporters hoped they were getting from Ajax. And now if you jump ahead a couple of months, his form has continued in La Liga. Sure, he had a little dip, but he's back in good form again. He scored 4 and assisted 2 in La Liga, but his Conference League form has also been fantastic. 3 goals and 2 assists, including his recent screamer versus Fiorentina, volleying with his right foot, yes, his right foot, past his former United teammate, David De Gea, prompting De Gea to say after the match, quote, "I have trained 1,000 times with Antony, and he has never scored a goal with his right foot." Hey man, confidence is one hell of a drug when it comes to footballers, and Antony carried that into his next match in La Liga, where this weekend he channeled Arjen Robben, the original cut-inside man, to hit an absolutely ridiculous curling strike into the top corner to win the match for Betis in the 91st minute. At Betis, he has already bested his goal contributions in his last 72 appearances at United. It's crazy. And it's performances like these that have prompted Betis' CEO to say that, quote, "It's going to be difficult because he is a player owned by Manchester United with financial conditions that are what they are. I am cautiously optimistic. When we spoke about the possibility to bring Antony in January, I saw it more distant than I see now him staying. It's because both Manchester United and the player have seen that Real Betis is a great place for the player to develop. Right now, I'm more optimistic than in January." And as you heard in the intro, Joaquin, who now works alongside Real Betis sporting director Manu Fajardo, clearly sees Antony as a player that the club needs to hang on to. Even Antony's teammate Isco has said that no matter what it takes, they gotta keep the guy in Seville. Quote, "We have to do one of those crowdfundings to see if we can bring him back for at least another year. I'm happy to be enjoying Antony. He surprised us all with the humility with which he came, his willingness to help us, and what he brings. We've noticed a change since he arrived, and I'm very happy for him, for the team, and with the desire to keep doing things well." The biggest part of that change is no doubt the fact that Antony is finally enjoying himself, that he is Antony again. He himself has even said that the atmosphere and this unwanted reputation that he had built up at Manchester United played a huge role in his poor form, as he had completely lost his joy, saying, quote, I'm not gonna lie, I went through times that were difficult at Manchester United. Having that back for me is very important. I haven't forgotten how to play football. There were moments in my life that affected me. If I say they don't, it's a lie. Can't blame the guy, right? And he has a lot of affection for Pellegrini and Real Betis as a whole, as his interest would be to stay there, apparently. However, United may have other options, as Atletico Madrid are allegedly interested in Antony as well, with the idea being that United would accept a bid of around 40 million euros for him. So you see what I mean? Antony playing really well, a dangerous and effective player, and valued at around 40 million euros, just like when he was at Ajax. Proof of time travel. But he's yet another example of what everyone already knew. Confidence is everything in sports. Some players affected by it more than others, and when Antony is happy and confident, he really is the GOAT. Well, you know what I mean, right? Turning that thing around to use it in his favor. But anyways, guys, let me know where you think Antony will end up next season. Does he still have a future at United? Back to Betis after a sick crowdfunding campaign, or elsewhere in La Liga? Regardless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on Thursday for some Champions League action. See ya!